Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So in this video I thought I would do something a little bit different. I thought I would show you 10 movies from my collection that I consider to be underrated movies. I got the idea to do this video after watching Elliot Cohen. That's Boutique Blu-rays with Elliot Cohen. He did a very similar video quite recently where he showed off some movies from his collection that he considered to be underrated. And yeah, I thought I would try my hand at it. So yeah, I will show you what I've got. These movies are it's not like a top 10 list. It's not like these movies are ranked by quality or anything. It's basically just a random selection of movies from my collection that I consider to be underrated and don't really get enough praise. You may have seen some of these movies, you may not have seen some of them. Hopefully if you haven't, you might get some recommendations out of it. But yeah, let's just get straight into it. So the first one I've got here is a film called Retroactive. So yeah, this is a film that came out in 1997, I believe. It's a TV movie, straight to DVD movie, I think. It stars Jim Belushi and Kylie Travis, and it's basically a road movie with some elements of sci-fi. Kylie Travis's character is, she's on a road trip through the desert when a car breaks down. And she gets picked up by a married couple, with the husband being played by Jim Belushi. But this married couple, they have a lot of problems and they end up having an argument in the car whilst Kylie Travis's character is with them. And the argument ends with Jim Belushi shooting his wife. Now, Kylie Travis's character is able to get away, but he gives chase. She ends up in this cave, and as ridiculous as it sounds, she finds this time machine and she goes through it, and the time machine takes her back about 20 minutes prior. So she kind of realizes that she may be able to stop this murder from happening. So she goes back to try and stop it, but in the end, she kind of just makes it worse. So she goes back again through the time machine, and she keeps going back and back and back, but every time she goes through, things just escalate further and she just makes it worse every time. I know the concept sounds silly, but honestly, this movie is so much fun. Jim Belushi is loving every minute of it. You can just tell in his performance. There's just some really fun action scenes. It's actually quite a funny movie in places, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun, so enjoyable. If you love your sort of American road movies, if you like time travel, sci-fi movies, you've got to check this movie out. It's just a lot of fun, like I said. It's on the 88 Films label, and I do believe you can still get it, I think through their website and probably other places like Amazon and stuff. But yeah, don't hesitate. It's a lot of fun, this movie. Check it out. Next one I've got here is a film called Sorcerer, directed by William Friedkin, who is probably best known for doing films like The Exorcist and French Connection. This is the film he made after those two. And it's basically about a group of guys who, from like different parts of the world, who they're criminals and they end up on the run, but they all end up in this country in South America. And they get given the opportunity to basically have their freedom if they will undertake this mission to transport some explosives from one part of the country to the other. And they have to transport the explosives in these sort of trucks, but the mission is a very dangerous one. The explosives they have to transport are very volatile. The route they have to take is very, very treacherous. This mission could, result in their deaths if anything were to go wrong. And yeah, it's just a fantastic film, very gritty movie. It's got some really tense moments in it. There's one scene in particular where they have to cross this rope bridge during a storm, and it's just a really great edge of your seat moment, and there's a whole host of other moments like that as well. And yeah, this is just a fantastic film from the 70s that is kind of like those old Hollywood films kind of before the blockbuster era. Funnily enough, this movie had the sad distinction of being released, I think, in the same week as the original Star Wars film. So this film died a very, very quick death, and it wasn't until years later that it was kind of rediscovered. And I think because it's directed by William Friedkin, who is kind of a notorious director, but a cult figure at the same time. I think it has found a new appreciation, but I still don't really see many people talking about this movie, but it's definitely one you have to check out. Yeah, just a really great, gritty, dark sort of thriller, but yeah, it's a fantastic film. But yeah, that is Sorcerer. Next film I've got here is a film called 10 Rillington Place. I don't know if you can see the title on the case there, but yeah, this is a film that is based on a true story about a man from the 1950s in London who was a prolific serial killer, and he lived in a house with his wife, and you know, during that time he killed many women over the years, and he was able to get away for it for a long time, and he stored their remains in like various places in the house. When the film sort of starts, it's kind of taking place after a lot of the murders have happened, and we're introduced to John Hurt's character, and he and his wife basically rent a room at this house, and I don't really want to say much more than that, but things kind of escalate from there. And yeah, it's just a fantastic horror film, very, very creepy in places. Richard Attenborough plays the serial killer, and he is just a very, very creepy individual. He kind of comes across as a bit of a loser, but you know that deep down he's got this really dark like nature to him. And yeah, it's just a brilliant film. Like I said, a great horror film, but also deals a lot with like criminal injustices and things like that. And yeah, I don't really want to say much more without spoiling it, but the film does escalate, and you'll be shocked at some of the things that happen in this movie. But yeah, I would definitely recommend it if you like your horror or your sort of your serial killer type thrillers. It's fantastic. That is 10 Rillington Place. The next one I've got here is a DVD. I've not yet upgraded this to Blu-ray. I hope to eventually. But it's a film called Fire in the Sky. So yeah, this is, again, another film based on a true story. And it's about a group of men who, one day, they were all sort of working out in the woods in, I think it was Arizona. And after they had finished up for the day and they were driving back home, they all saw this this bright light coming from within the woods. And one of the guys decided to, he basically got out the car and went to investigate. And then he just disappeared without a trace. The rest of his friends could not find him at all. And then 5 or 6 days later, he suddenly reappeared out of nowhere. No sort of idea of where he had been. But he claimed that he had been abducted by aliens, and he gave a very, very detailed account on, you know, those whole 5 days whilst he was missing. So yeah, this is basically what the movie's about. It doesn't really deal with the alien abduction stuff as much. The film kind of follows his friends more than anyone else, and it deals more with like the media circus, and you know, the sort of the police get involved, and you know, obviously they think he may have disappeared under suspicious circumstances. So it deals more with that side of things. But there is a sequence at the end of this movie where you see this character on an alien spaceship, and it shows what he claimed had happened to him. And it is an absolutely terrifying sequence. It will make you scared about being abducted by aliens, let's just put it that way. But yeah, like I said, it doesn't really deal with that side as much. It's more about the media circus and the police investigation. But yeah, it's just a fantastic sci-fi horror film, and kind of a precursor to things like The X-Files, because I think this came out in 92, 93, so just before The X-Files. But yeah, if you like your sci-fi movies, your alien abduction films, this is one you have to check out. So next up, I have a film. I don't actually have an individual release for this, but it's part of this box set, Clint Eastwood box set, and it's a film called Breezy. So this movie, basically, it stars William Holden and Kay Lenz. Kay Lenz plays a very young hippie who doesn't really have a permanent residence. She kind of just hitchhikes her way through life, but she's got a very sort of flaky personality, a breezy personality. She just kind of takes each day as it comes. She's just very easygoing about the whole thing. And then you've got William Holden's character. He is very successful businessman. He's very secure. He's got a nice house. But he is divorced from his wife. Even though he's very successful, he's very lonely. And these two characters, they basically cross paths. And he kind of takes pity on her because she's got nowhere to go. So he offers her, a room for the night. But then he kind of says, you know, once it's morning, you just have to be on your way and go wherever you're going to go. But the two characters kind of form this relationship. Now, her character, she's not as bothered as much about, you know, the age difference and the differences in class, because William Holden's character is much older than her. He's probably about 40, maybe even 50 years older than her, but she doesn't really care. She takes a liking to him, and she kind of wants to stick around and stay with him. And he also takes a liking to her, but he is more uneasy about it because of the age difference and, you know, the way society might look at them. But yeah, this is just a fantastic film, and even though it was an early film in Clint Eastwood's directional career, you can kind of see his maturity in this film. And yeah, it's just a testament to him as what a great director he is. I think this film kind of failed because it was the first film he directed that he didn't star in. And I think at the time, people were expecting Clint Eastwood to be in every movie that he directed, because that was the case up until that point. I think he was going to play the male character in this movie, but he kind of decided that he wasn't old enough to play him. And I can kind of agree with that. I don't think he would have been right for the role. But yeah, it's just a fantastic drama, really sweet, heartfelt movie. Yeah, just a really great story. The characters are great. Clint Eastwood doesn't really... He doesn't make the romance in it seem that obvious. He makes it very subtle and plays it very low-key, and I think that's the right way to go with it. And it kind of deals more with just the characters, you know, relationship with each other and how much they get on with each other. And yeah, it's just a fantastic movie, and I was really surprised at it. A great film, and I do think it is one of Clint Eastwood's best films that he directed. Yeah, just a great movie. That is Breezy. Okay, the next film I've got here is a film that... This is the one film I am so desperate for a Blu-ray release for. And it's a movie called The Keep, directed by Michael Mann. So yeah, this is a movie that's set during World War II times, and it's about a platoon, well, a group of German soldiers that they stumble across this castle in a European village, and it kind of sits on the edge of this village. So they go to this castle, and the villagers basically warn them, saying, you know, you should stay away from this castle, you know, don't go into it. Obviously the German soldiers just kind of ignore them and take up residence in this castle, and they think it might be a good place to stay. But they inadvertently release this supernatural presence that is being held within the castle, and it has done for centuries. And from there, things happen, people die, horrific things happen, and yeah, it's just a terrific horror movie. But it's got a really interesting history, because this movie is only 90 minutes long, but when Michael Mann completed the film, the original cut, I believe, was 3.5 hours. So the studio just laughed at him and said, there is no way we're releasing a 3.5 hour horror movie, you've got to cut it. So Michael Mann, he did that. He cut the movie down to 2 hours, and he said, there you go, I've cut the movie, that's what I'll release. But the studios still weren't happy, and they wanted it to be even shorter. So they kind of went behind Michael Mann's back and cut the movie more without his approval. And yeah, because of that, the movie is flawed. There's a lot of continuity errors. There's some really jarring edits in places. There's even parts where the soundtrack just kind of cuts off very unnaturally, and you can just tell it's been edited really badly. For years, fans have been asking Michael Mann to release, you know, a full version of the movie, maybe even the 3.5 hour version, but Michael Mann has just kind of distanced himself from this movie, and he won't talk about it. So the chances of this getting a Blu-ray release, especially, you know, the original version or even the 2-hour version of the movie. They seem very slim at the moment, but despite all the flaws in this movie, it's still a fantastic horror movie. Great atmosphere, great soundtrack by Tangerine Dream, and yeah, just some brilliant visuals in it and some really unique characters, kind of like a good versus evil type of movie. Hopefully we will get it on Blu-ray, I don't know, but at the moment this DVD will do. If you do want to track down this DVD, it is a Via Vision release, so that's an Australian company, but you can get it on eBay, I think, for fairly decent prices. But yeah, at the moment, this is the best way to watch the movie. But yeah, if you like horror movies, you like sort of horror movies set during World War II times, you have to check this out. It's just a brilliant film. That is the keep. Next up, I've got an Arrow release. Now, I kind of wanted to steer clear of Arrow releases just because you know, I think most of the movies they release, they tend to be unknown movies or underrated movies. So I think it's kind of a given that I would show some of those off. But I do have a couple of films that I do think deserve more credit. And the first one is a film called The Villainess. So yeah, this is a South Korean movie, South Korean action movie. And it's basically about a woman who, at the beginning of the movie, she decides to take revenge on this gang who have killed her father. And after she does that, she gets captured by the authorities, but she gets taken in by the government, and they basically hire her as an assassin because of the skills that she possesses. And yeah, it kind of just goes from there. Not the most original plot, I'll give you that. It takes a lot of influence from the likes of Nikita. But the reason why I'm singling this film out is because it has a few sequences in it that are just stunning. Everyone talks about that hallway fight scene from Oldboy, but there's a scene at the beginning of this movie that I think can easily rival it. The opening scene of the film is basically her making her way through this warehouse, fighting the gang that she wants to take revenge on, but it is shot from her point of view. So when you're watching it, it's as if you know, the audience is doing the fighting, doing the shooting, and it's just a fantastic sequence, so well shot, so well choreographed, and it goes on for, you know, quite a while, possibly 10 minutes, and it's just a fantastic sequence. And there's another sequence at the end of the movie that takes place on a bus. And I know people have talked about the movie Nobody, and the bus scene in that, but you haven't seen nothing yet until you see the bus scene in this movie. Yeah, it's just a fantastic action film. If you like action movies, you have to check it out. I don't think this film gets enough credit. It's just brilliant. And the other one I've got is another South Korean movie, and it's a movie called Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. Now, some of you may know this film because it's actually part of a trilogy of films that also includes a film called Lady Vengeance. But the other film in the trilogy is the very, very popular movie Oldboy. They're not connected by story, but they're connected by like theme. But for me, this film is the much superior movie, and it just does not get talked about as much. I think Oldboy has a very chaotic, very manic, energetic approach. This film takes a more subtle approach, and it's more drama driven, more character driven. It's basically about this young couple who they kidnap this young boy to hold for ransom. They inadvertently end up killing the boy by accident, and the boy's father decides to take revenge on this couple. And like I said, it's a much more subtle approach. It kind of deals more with the tragic side of it. You know, the grief that obviously for this character losing his son and going to just such extreme lengths to get justice for it. And yeah, I just think this film is absolutely fantastic. It blew me away. Yeah, like I say, I just don't think it gets enough credit. It's just a fantastic revenge movie. But you know, if you like it more drama driven, more character based, then you have to check it out. It's just a wonderful film. Next up, we've got one of my all-time favorite films, and it's a film called Dark City. So this film came out in 1998, and it's basically about this city that, for whatever reason, always seems to be in darkness. It always seems to be nighttime, but the people who live in this city don't really seem to have any idea. As it turns out, this city is actually controlled by these beings that live beneath it. Now, what I think is interesting about this film is that it has a lot of similarities in plot to The Matrix, but this movie actually predates The Matrix, and for me, it's just a much superior film. It's got a really great cast, not necessarily like A-list actors, but you've got people like Rufus Sewell, Jennifer Connelly, William Hurt, and you've even got Richard O'Brien in there, you know, from Rocky Horror Picture Show. But yeah, this film is great because it combines like elements of like noir detective kind of stories, but then with elements of sci-fi, and it's just a thoroughly entertaining movie. Really, really great film, and it just doesn't get talked about enough. I think The Matrix, I think it kind of lives in the shadow of The Matrix, but for me it's a much superior film, and if you like sci-fi movies, or if you even like films like The Matrix, then I think this is definitely worth a go. It's just a fantastic movie. And lastly, I'm going to go with a film that is actually my all-time favourite movie. Initially, I wasn't too sure whether to include this because I think out of all of these films, it probably is the most popular, but I still don't really hear that many people talking about it. It is a film called Falling Down, starring Michael Douglas, and it's directed by Joel Schumacher. So yeah, basically this film, it's about this character played by Michael Douglas, and when the film starts, he's basically on his way to work. He's in his car, but he's stuck in a traffic jam. It's the hottest day of the year. There's like really noisy roadworks going on. People in the other cars around him are having arguments, domestic disputes, and things like that. And he's just sitting there trying to remain as calm as possible. But then he suddenly just gets out of his car and starts walking away. A guy in the car behind him basically says to him, "Where are you going?" And he just turns to him and says, "I'm going home." And from that point, we basically follow his character as he tries to go home and just kind of get away from everything. As he makes that long journey home, things kind of happen that kind of mess with his character, let's say. The movie kind of starts off fairly lighthearted. You think it's kind of a comedy, and there are even a few funny moments. Like there's a scene where he's trying to, he wants change for the payphone, but he doesn't have any, so he tries to get it from a convenience store, and the store owner is just really difficult with him. There's just scenes like that. But as the film goes on and you start to learn more about his character, and you kind of learn that there is actually this darkness within him that is kind of slowly being unleashed. And yeah, as the film goes on, it does get quite tragic by the end. Yeah, it's just a fantastic story and a fantastic performance by Michael Douglas. I'm a big sucker for movies where you have a main character who starts off good and then slowly turns bad. I don't know, I've always liked characters that do that. I think another great example is something like Breaking Bad. But yeah, I love this movie. It's my all-time favorite film, and like I said, I think it does get a lot of praise, but at the same time, it doesn't get enough praise. And yeah, I had to include it because it is my favorite movie, and I just love it to death. Fantastic story, really tragic in places, but then there's some really funny moments, and there's some great acting in there. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, I fully implore you to check it out. So there you go, guys. Those are 10 films from my collection that I consider to be underrated movies. Like I said, it's not a ranking list. It's not like they're my top 10 most underrated movies. I have plenty of others in my collection, but those are just the ones I kind of gravitated to and the ones I wanted to talk about. But yeah, for now, I will leave it at that. So I really hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me know if you've seen any of these movies. Let me know if you haven't. Hopefully I've recommended a few there. But yeah, I will leave the video there. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys, and I will hopefully see you all again very soon. So take care, guys.